Hey everyone, let's talk about internalized oppression this week in our class anyway. We're talking about an example that has nothing to do with race, and perhaps will just make it a little bit clearer or connected to your own experience, assuming the example connects with your own experience, right? So, non-racial example, internalized oppression. The premise we'll start with is powerful corporations want you to feel insecure about your body, all right? Why? So that you will buy their stuff that promises to make your body look better or feel better, okay? That's the basic premise here. If you don't agree with it, fine, but it's a premise for an example. Just move with it on. I will continue to press its validity. I think it's fairly valid, but let's move on. Now, So sociologists call this a form of social control, right? So if something powerful, somebody or something powerful wants to control you, to form a social control. And they also call this specifically hegemony, right? So that by the use of culture, people try to control you. That is to contrast it with outright domination, or with the raw use of power to control you, threats or physical violence or economic, leverage or legal leverage where they're forcing you to do something. Here, they use culture, ideas, norms, stuff like that. In this case, we're talking about controlling images, which is a nice case because we just read about this a couple weeks ago for Patricia Hill Collins talked about this for black women and controlling images, so that people have images in their mind, and these matter because both the people themselves who look like those people may bother them, or they may try to live up to those images, or other people may use those images to judge the person who happens to look like that controlling image, or vaguely look like that controlling image. Okay, so we're going to talk about corporations and body images, right? Something with which you may be familiar. Frankly, it's something which we are all inundated with. You ever been to a supermarket store lately? All right, you see something like this, which is just ripped off the web, with a very attractive model here who, is next to a big title that's advising you to look great naked, which is, as we will see, this is the point of money. This is to make you feel a little anxious, right? How many of us would really just like to think about being looked at naked while you're at CVS under the fluorescent lights, right? Not a particularly attractive option for many of us, at least for myself, if I should say so, right? And then some ab routines, quick recipes that are healthy and tasty, offers to end your bikini stress with the perfect swimsuit. Anxiety invoking ladies out there, perhaps, right? So that all of these things, the idea is we have this image. It varies a little bit of bodies, right? Particularly, this happens to be a white body, but we're not talking about race right now. So you have bodies out there, and that these images, because you may be concerned that you fail to live up to these lithe bodies on the cover of magazines, that you may go out and get some radical surgeries done, right? So that people enhance various parts of their bodies. For example, it's not just a woman thing, it's a crazy thing, right? You need a lift. This is before and after pictures lifted off the web, right? Need a lift? You can get a breast implant, or as they now, for guys, they call them pec implants, right? Ooh, fake pecs. But really, what's the difference between this and a breast implant? I don't know. There might be one, but I'm not aware of it, right? So that, it's not actually just about women anymore. It's also about men. So that whereas in the past, women got a lot of images for their bodies, men now have equal opportunities to feel anxious. This, of course, was before I grew my hair out. I graced the cover of a men's magazine, believe it or not. And things to power up your diet, lose your gut, more energy, look your best. This thing's about sexy women, over 2,000 of them say what they want or something in bed, of course, So it's a little more exercise, but looking your best now. But certainly a clear emphasis in terms of controlling image of what sort of the ideal body does. It's weird, like talking about six-pack abs is a relatively new thing. When I grew up not that long ago, really, people didn't know what that was. But I think it's in part related to the greater amounts of images on like men's magazines covers compared to what they used to be in the past. In the past, actually, men's magazine was filled with pictures of naked women. Now they're like about pictures of semi-clad men, interestingly enough. But that's a whole different change. I don't entirely understand what that's about. So we have these controlling images of bodies that many of us can't help but compare ourselves to. And, even if we're not necessarily looking directly at that, we know of an ideal that is pretty, slender, pretty developed, and pretty toned, right? Now, the result of this, I would say, for the corporations is sales of their products and magazines and everything. Now, this is good for business. Why does a magazine like this exist? Well, of course, it exists primarily to make money, to sell magazines itself, and where it gets most of its revenue from is to sell ads within. So, and what do the ads within do? They do a lot of this same thing, presenting really nice bodies that we are actually quite often not sure we measure up to, and often the products associated with these ads in some way promise to give you a body similar to these, right? Or, oftentimes, of course, these magazines have very little actual articles and just tons and tons of advertisements. So the whole point of this, from the corporation's point, is to make some money. Right, for us, and as I've mentioned before, a fair amount of self-anxiety, right? Like, do we measure up? Do we look like this? What are we going to do? Are we going to work out? Are we going to just feel bad? Are we going to, have some sort of eating disorder? Are we going to buy these products? Are we going to have a fair amount of self-loathing, right? To some degree, there's an immense variety of human bodies and physical appearances and stuff. And if we happen to not look like some of these images, some people have a real hard time with that, accepting themselves as that way. And then we also are going to waste a lot of money, I think, is the critical point, on stuff that to make us feel better, when we didn't even feel bad about it in the first case, because until these companies came along that sold us stuff that made us feel bad, and so made us have some images. They gave us some images that make us feel bad, right? And then finally down here, whoopsie, it's not quite visible. We have. Okay, sorry, the phone is ringing off the hook. Finally, down here, I would say this is an example of internalized oppression, all right? So that, we've taken in this thing from the outside, this image that exists, right, from a powerful entity, in this case, corporations. In the case of race, it would be like a racial system, a racialized system, as well as some corporations and stuff in the beauty. There are some overlap here, obviously related to the beauty image and the hair image, as we talk about today. Though there's also some reason to think that some of this beauty stuff works differently for people of color and for white folks. So that, for example, most of the real recent research on eating disorders points to pretty significant differences in occurrence of eating disorders between blacks and whites, or whatever. It didn't focus, the stuff I've read hasn't focused on other groups as well, so I'm not so sure on that. Anyway, so hopefully this as an example will help us, just in case you're not getting internalized oppression, for anyone who's not getting it. It's like, if you've been aware that people take these body images and then do things that sometimes are a little odd and worry about themselves in ways that perhaps they don't need to, this is the example. Thanks so much. Give me any questions to the virtual office. Bye-bye.